And that's when I figured out I can buy something and sell it for more money.
In
And
first grade?
yeah, in first grade. That's right.
Oh
And
my
it
God,
got,
that's amazing.
so the funny thing is, it got so out of hand that the principal called my mother, asked her to tell me to stop selling things because he was getting too many complaints from the parents that I was taking their children's lunch money. Yeah, that was my first run-in with business, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Welcome to the Break Free podcast with your host, David Mancilla. Jonathan Nieto, brother, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Debbie?
Good. Thanks. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I think you are an inspiration for the younger generations to start doing what is most fulfilling while achieving all their goals. So
Thank you.
thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Jonathan, if you can tell me where do you live and what do you do for a living?
Sure, absolutely. So I come from the tropical area of sunny South Florida. So I live in Miami. My businesses are also located in Miami, and the sort of business I own different businesses. So I own 3 different businesses, but my core business, more than anything, and what I love to do more than anything, is really to help businesses with marketing strategies, putting things together, executing just strategies, and helping them grow their business. I own through the marketing company, I own an automation software, and that also helps businesses that just don't have structure to be able to scale, helps them grow as well. And I love doing it. I love doing it because I know what it does for many people. So that's what I'm up to nowadays.
So, quick question. How can you have 3 businesses when you look like you're 17 years old?
Good genes, a lot of patience.
Awesome. All right, so let's go back to the roots. Where are you from originally? Were you born in the States?
I was, yes. So I was born in Miami, Florida, born and raised in Miami, Florida. My parents, however, they are immigrants as well. So my mother fled Cuba. My mother's family fled Cuba during Castro's takeover of the island. My family at the time were actually very successful in Cuba. My family in Cuba, my grandfathers and uncles all played professional baseball for the Cuban national team, but they ended up losing everything once Castro took over. Fled to the United States. On the other side, my father's side, I'm half Colombian as well, so I'm half Cuban, half Colombian. My father's side, they ended up serving during. So my father's grandfather and father both were in the Colombian Air Force, and they ended up serving and completing their tour, I guess, and then they were given the ability to move to the United States. My parents met in Miami, and magic happened.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. What do you do for school? Like when you were in high school, what did you say? Like, how was that progression into becoming your own boss?
That's a great question. So for me, it actually goes a little deeper than high school. For me, it really started actually in elementary. I've always been very business inclined. And I noticed that a lot of other entrepreneurs, they have a very early history, early run-in with business. For me, it was I started selling candies and sharpeners and all types of just school supplies, toys to my schoolmates, my classmates in the first grade. And that's when I figured out I can buy something and sell it for more money.
In
And
first grade?
yeah, in first grade. That's right.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, it got so out of hand that the principal called my mother. Not kidding. The principal called my mother, asked her to tell me to stop selling things because he was getting too many complaints from the parents that I was taking their children's lunch money. So that was my first
That's
run-in.
amazing.
Yeah, that was my first run-in with business, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Oh my God, that's incredible. What do you know what prompted you to start selling some? Like, what was the opportunity? Like, I know you were in grade 1 and it was a long time ago, but what was in your mind? What made you do this? No, most kids don't do that. 99% of the kids don't do that.
Yeah, I think it's, I come from a family of very, I think that's one advantage that a lot of immigrant families have when they come to this country is that they're very hardworking people and they're very resourceful. And I remember seeing my mother always being involved in some sort of business outside of what she did as in terms of her 9 to 5, right? Her regular business. She always had something on the side. So I think that maybe that's probably what could have started it. My parents also, they were property owners. So that's one of the first things. I learned a lot of business from them, really. So I guess just learning from them, that could have been the start of it all. But I've never
Very
asked myself that question. That's a good question.
right. Yeah, because it's not, like I remember the first time I sold something was when I was in military school. I
Mm.
realized that most of the students wanted to have these special jungle boots, and they were very hard to get. So I had access to get them. So I started selling them for profit, and that was the first venture that I had. But dude, like I was on my late teen years already. And I wasn't in grade one, you know. All right. So moving forward, after school, after high school, did you go to university or you went right into business?
So yes, so I immediately after high school. Yes, I started. I went to Miami-Dade College. The goal was really to graduate from there, then go to FIU or go into UM. I ended up actually chasing a degree in computer sciences, but the calling of business just was too strong. And during the time that I was there, I realized, computer technologies wasn't really the path I wanted to be on. However, in the meantime, while I was in college, what I learned allowed me to start a computer technologies business while I was in college. And
Huh.
I ended up actually quitting college at that time, just to focus on business. And I ended up, I ended up doing different things, but I've always been very close and very involved with just business, period. And I had a lot of failures that led to the point where I'm at today, where I can say I'm technically really a business owner, not a business operator. But I went through a lot of failures getting to that point. That was definitely one of my failures is just launching myself into things that I just didn't know enough about, wasn't passionate about.
Mhm.
That's one thing that definitely taught me something about business for sure.
Let's dig deeper into what you just said, because uh, I don't think I mean, it's easily said, but I don't think the meaning of it is bigger than just the words. What do you mean by business owner and business operator?
That's a good question. So business, I'll tell you something that a mentor of mine um, uh, shared with me once that has stuck with me for a very long time. He mentioned to me, he said, Jonathan, if you can't walk away from your business and it make money, you don't have a business, you have a job.
Mhm.
And when he said that, it really took me back, and I said, wow, you know what? I can't really walk away from, if I walk away from my business goes crazy. Um, so the big difference between a business, for me at least, and for a lot of other business owners that are doing it right, the big difference is creating something that doesn't necessarily require you to do everything in it for it to make money. If I can walk away from my business and I have a team of people, great people running it for me, I have accomplished what I was after, which is becoming a business owner. And in the role of a business operator, you find yourself doing a lot of the work, mostly all of the work, a lot of the times. And if you've read the E-Myth, you kind of understand the concept of technician versus manager versus entrepreneur. That is a major difference. The major difference is what you're working on and being able to walk away from your business, spend time on developing your business rather than doing the work itself.
Got it. It's funny that you remind me of a book. My mentor is called Dan Sullivan, and he wrote a book called Who Not How.
Hmm.
And it talks exactly about that in different terminologies, but it's exactly the same concept. Uh, there is a lot of business owners, CEOs that they may, some of them even make, like 20, 30, $100 million a year in sales, but they're still business operators. They are not business owners. And the book talks about how do you actually fire yourself with somebody that can do what you are doing better, faster, and cheaper, right? And that's the goal, so that you can actually focus on how do you grow the business and the and the and what's involved to make it bigger instead of actually running the day-to-day business operations. So congratulations, that's why you are successful, actually,
Thank you
right?
very much. And I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
right? I was a business operator for a long time. My business, I run a software consulting firm. We built enterprise systems for companies to grow their profits. But at the beginning, since I started the business until, my God, at least 2010, so for at least 5 years, I was the I was the business operator, and it was crazy. And then I grew, and I was still the operator. I actually became a business owner about 3 4 years ago myself. So that's why I wanted to get deep into that, because this is a key element. Of course, at the beginning, when you start up your own business, you have to do whatever it takes to make it survive and then make it thrive. But once you have some sort, a level of confidence that everything is running, you have to start building systems in place and hiring the right people so that you can automate your role in the business, right?
Absolutely. I remember one of my good friends that I speak to every once in a while. We hold each other accountable. We have these accountability meetings that we hold each other accountable, right? So one of the things that he tells me a lot is to always be replacing yourself. And I found that to be very beneficial in terms of always looking for things that I'm just self-assessing what I'm working on, being very, 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 very present of my time, where it goes, studying where my time goes, and then seeing what I can do to delegate that to someone else that could either do it better than me, or it's just something I shouldn't be doing. But it's constant self-assessment. What am I spending my time on, at least for me, and what can I delegate to someone else? Right, because at the end of the day, and just a final point here is going back to what I was talking about, being the entrepreneur of the business. That's really the most important role of a business owner, is to be in a developmental role for the business. A business owner that's focusing on managing the business or doing the work itself is taking time away from the most valuable thing that a CEO or an owner should be doing, which is developing the business. And I learned that through trial and error. I learned that through the school of hard knocks, so we like to say, right? But it's very true. I found it to be very true. The most important thing in any business owner, or the most important thing in any business, is to continue finding ways to serve the client better, continue to finding ways to serve better, more efficiently, developing the business period, and developing yourself as a leader. Mm-hmm. So those key distinctions can take any business to the next level.
It's beautiful. Now let's talk about that first business, your computer technology business. What was it about that actually made you quit college? Because that's a bold move. Like, most parents will freak out, right? Yeah. And you did it. So tell me, what was the rationale behind it? How did you come up to this business? What was the business about? And what was that point where you said, you know what, I gotta quit my studies and just go full time on this?
So it wasn't, I'll be 100% honest with you, David. It wasn't because I saw a video of a guru talking about college. You don't need college and this and that. It was not that. I was just smart enough to realize that I can make more money doing my own thing without zero debt when I get out of school. And that was really the only factor for me. That was it. When I realized, okay, I can make over $100,000 a year and come out with zero debt. And so who am I doing this for? Who am I getting this title for? Mm-hmm. So when I realized it's all vanity, I said, there's no need for me to continue doing this. I'm just going to focus on what I need to do. Jim Rohn says something very, very true, which is Tony Robbins' mentor: profits are better than wages. Would you agree?
Of course, 100%. And it's funny because the average student in the United States, I think, is about $100,000 in debt after they graduate. So, like, imagine that, like, how much you can make with that money. Having said that, though, I truly believe education is very important in your life, as long as the career demands it, or what your vocation demands it. But now with the internet, we're in the knowledge era. Mm-hmm. Honestly, like, anything you can ever want to learn is at your fingertips on the internet. If you really dig deeper, and finding mentors in nowadays is abundant because everybody's helping each other out. We're in the co-creation economy now, right? So it's specifically for business-oriented careers, I think you're right. I think there is a way to figure it out. Like, if you want to learn accounting, for example, go get an accounting course from the best accountant in the world and pay them $20,000 and be done with it.
I agree.
instead of having a 4-year college degree in accounting and $100,000 debt. However, if you want to be an employee, and if you want to go that route, having the paper works, right? Because you need those credentials sometimes to get into jobs, high paying jobs, if that makes sense.
I agree. And I think you got to have also a very high risk tolerance too, because it's very risky to get into business. It's very risky to quit college and not have any sense of certainty of what's to come. I 100% agree with you. Yes, education is critical. Just to be clear, just because I quit college doesn't mean I quit on my education. My education never stopped. The only thing was that I took education. Education for me was on my own terms. How did I educate myself? It's funny. I was literally having a conversation around this not too long ago, and we were discussing how I learned more from YouTube videos than I did from anything related to marketing when I was in college. By the way, I didn't mention this, but I did go back to college. I ended up going to Colorado Technical University after that. So after my first business didn't play out, so I ended up going back to college, got into more debt. Yeah, I did. And I took business administration and marketing, right? Marketing was one of the things that I like to do. Business was another thing that I like to do. So it was a natural fit for me. But again, I ended up quitting, not because I was a quitter, but it was just because I realized I'm not doing this for myself, and I'm not learning what I was expecting to learn. So fast forward into the future, I've already had a few businesses. I've run several corporations, and I'm realizing education is even though I didn't spend $100,000 on my college degree, I did spend it in other areas. Even till, so for example, I was doing the calculations, just this year, I've already spent, I think like $45,000 just in personal development. Mm-hmm. The education, just because you don't go to college doesn't mean that you don't have to educate yourself. And I tell people this all the time. Education is critical. Yeah. But it's out there. It's all out there. And one of my favorite distinctions, and I'll add this I know I'm rambling at this point, but I think it's valuable for anyone that's listening, David. I was listening to not a podcast. I was listening to Tony Robbins speak on a show with Russell Brunson, which is another marketing genius. And he was talking about one of the things that Jim Rohn told him. And he said, don't let your knowledge lead to more knowledge. You'll become a fool. Let your knowledge lead to action, and you'll have everything you want. Yeah. So that's a key distinction. It's not just about learning. It's about taking the risks and taking the actions necessary to apply what you learn. Yeah. So those two things in conjunction have helped me tremendously, and I think would help anybody that's looking to grow a business.
I completely agree. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. It's exactly what you said. Right? Absolutely. Because you can get lost in knowledge. I mean, like, unless you want to teach it, but actually even teaching it is applying the knowledge, because you get the knowledge and then you give it back, right? You're completely right. And the remark of, education is critical. I truly believe that we stop learning the day that we die. Yes. I remember my father was a serial entrepreneur. He had 7 businesses before he passed away. And when he finally decided to do something else that is not making money, he was 75 years old, and he started learning how to brew beer, how to make wine. Wow. And then he became a painter. And oh my God, and he decided to go to Europe and start learning about European history. Like, the dude never stopped learning. But he lived his life to the fullest because of his curiosity, right? Incredible.
That's beautiful.
Right? So what was the business about? So you actually went bankrupt on the first business?
So I didn't go bankrupt. I just went out of business. Yeah, and that for me, the reason why that one went out of business is really just the passion wasn't there for me. Really, the business was, we would build computers for people, build computers for businesses. And I would find myself stuck to a screen, programming, doing JavaScript, just programming computers, installing operating systems, and just saying it. I don't even want to think about it anymore. It's fun.
It was not your calling for sure.
I'm a very, I'll put it this way. I'm a creative at heart. I'm an artist at heart.
Right.
And it was very soul crushing for me. I've been in businesses that were soul crushing for me. And when they say you got to do what you love, I think that's very, very true. Otherwise, you're not going to have the resilience, and the strength to, overcome obstacles when they do come.
Right.
I had obstacles within that business, and you know what? I quit. Honest to God, I quit. I said, this is not really what I want to do.
Mhm. Fascinating. So you decided to quit, and then what came to your mind? Oh shit, I gotta learn something else, or what?
Yeah. So the education continued. I knew I wanted to be in something in business. So from there, I took a detour from that point. I took a detour into property management. So I ended up getting my license as a community association manager in Florida. I was a community association manager. I was a CMCA, which is a certified manager of community associations, and an AMS, which is an association management specialist. In essence, what that was, it was basically like the master's degree of the property management world, right? And I realized, I'm like, okay, it all boiled down to the numbers. Okay, so you're telling me I can make $150,000 a year and have minimal school debt? Okay, I'm on my way. So I ended up doing that, but I learned a lot about business during the way, because in the end, really what I was doing, I was managing non-for-profit corporations. I was in charge of the budget. I was leading teams. I was overseeing the financials. I was making decisions and dealing with board of directors. That's not too different from running your own business.
Now,
So,
was that a job, or was that like an independent
so that
contract?
that was a job that I had at the time. That was a job I had at the time. I did it for about 12 years. I stayed with it, but I also went on and off with my own businesses as well. So during that time, I opened up a property maintenance company as well, that was run by my parents. I actually helped them start up the business. I oversaw it as well. I also stepped away at the time for a few years, and I opened up a dry cleaner. So I had a dry cleaner as well, which honestly was the one that, out of all the businesses, I think was the one that I learned the most, and the one that was my biggest failure, which I learned the most.
Tell me more about it. Dry cleaners. You're a true entrepreneur. You know that, from computer software and hardware to dry cleaners. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Here's the thing: you only got to get it right once. That's what I
Yeah.
keep hearing. So,
Yeah.
so it took me a while to get it right. Right. I'll tell you a little more about that particular business. I had zero passion about dry cleaning. I knew nothing about dry cleaning. The only thing I had known about dry cleaning up until that point was that there was money in it at the time, in the area that I wanted to open up. So the opportunity presented itself, jumped on it, and I became instantly the technician of that business. I had some people that would help me within the business as well, but about 90% of the operations were me, right? And my logic at the time was, okay, I'm going to work this entire business, work hard on this business, and just do everything until I save enough money to hire people. Seems like a solid strategy, but it was not, because it was really a recipe for burnout. I was working 16-hour shifts, right? And get this. So I would wake up at 6 a.m, go to work, get to the business. I would start packaging clothes, doing deliveries, pickups. I would do obviously anything that had to do with the marketing side of the business. I would have to, anything for the business. It was me doing it. I was even, at the time, I was even doing, as a business owner, I'm there just ironing clothes. You name it, I was doing it. The business itself, it was very tough. And what happened after that is, within 2 months of me opening up the store, my wife at the time gets pregnant. And now I have a child on the way, a new business, and I'm like, we have to move out of the place where we're at. So I'm like, you can imagine the stress I was going through. So she's getting ready to go on maternity leave. My business is not making the kind of money, because I haven't been able to scale it to the point where I'm making enough money where it's sustaining itself. And then I'm also having to pick up a 9 to 5. So I go back into property management. since I had the licenses and all the certifications. I was pretty good at what I did there. So I go back into property management to support the dry cleaner. And then I had to go do construction after that to go basically prepare us for this new house that we were going to move into because the family was growing. So the stress was immeasurable. I mean, the stress I was under, I gained weight, my health suffered, my relationship with my family suffered tremendously. My biggest failure from that was really that I didn't want help. I wanted to do it all by myself because I was accustomed. I grew up watching my father work hard. I grew up, and I think that, again, going back to it's kind of like the mindset for a lot of immigrants that they come to this country and they know they have to work hard. So my mindset was I got to work hard. If I'm not working hard, I'm not successful. That was the story I would tell myself. So eventually that led to me burning out. Imagine working 16, 17-hour days.
Right.
So it led to me burning out. It led to my wife at the time literally walking up to me and telling me, you know what? I'm done. I'm getting divorced. I'm leaving you. Marriage dissolved, 3 kids, and everything that I had done really just felt like I did it for nothing.
It felt like the world was imploding in front
Everything,
of you, right?
my entire world at the time, just collapsed.
Right.
And it was a very difficult time for me. And it all really came from me not knowing what I was doing. And I remember sitting in my office, David, I remember clearly sitting in my office one day and saying, this cannot be how business is run. This cannot be it. And I made it a point from that point there. I knew that if I could figure out how to run business the right way, how to market a business the right way, I could grab any business that I wanted to, and I could make it profitable and make it run the way it was supposed to. And that I could also help people avoid the mistakes that I make, because it was very near and dear to my heart.
Right.
The pain that I went through was just ignorance on my part. I just didn't know any better. So now I take it upon myself, not just to help businesses, but help entrepreneurs that just don't know what to do, avoid those mistakes that I
Yeah.
But
But I truly believe though that your biggest failures are your biggest your biggest friends in terms of making you the person that you are now. Because those lessons, brother, going through those lessons that made the beautiful human being that you are now. It's only through fire, right? It's only through fire that you can shape gold, right? So so I guess you sold the dry cleaning business. Like, what happened after your divorce?
So, so after the divorce, I ended up losing the dry cleaner. Because I left the business to, I left the business in the hands of the employees. My presence dropped within the business. The quality started to drop as well. Money started to drop as well, right? Just, I wanted to sell the business, but the business just wasn't there. So I ended up just closing it down. But it really was just, honestly, looking back into it, it really was just the mindset that I had at the time. Just a very, very different mindset than what I have nowadays, right? They say, Tony Robbins says business is 80% psychology, 20% success.
Execution. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, not success. You're right. 20% strategy or execution. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the right mindset. So I didn't know what to do with the business. Ended up closing it down. Just went back into property management. Stayed low for a while, and then after that, I ended up getting back into business, but this time just a little I did it a little different.
You pivoted because you're learning, right?
Yeah.
So what was the next business?
So the next business I started was a video production company here in Miami with a partner of mine. It all started with us just having a passion for fishing. We loved going out and fishing. We said, how great would it be if we made money shooting YouTube videos and then just, picking up sponsors and just doing the whole YouTube thing. That slowly evolved into us doing it for other companies because we got very good at what we did. And we had companies starting to reach out and asking us to do videos for them. So fast forward today, we do shows for tournaments. So we work very closely within the fishing industry, but now we shoot tournaments for fishing tournaments. We do a lot of video production for boat manufacturers, some boat manufacturers you've probably heard of, but commercials. We're just doing a lot of work now, but um, it really came from a passion that we had about fishing. So
Isn't
yeah,
it crazy that, like you mentioned that dry cleaner, you mentioned as a computer company, and now you said my passion for fishing created a video production company, and that's where you're successful at because you followed your passion finally, right? Plus, you had all these lessons learned from your past failures, right?
yes,
By the
yeah,
way, I haven't met an entrepreneur that is successful that hasn't had failures in their life. Like, it's impossible to me. That doesn't exist. So, and this is good for the audience to listen, because if you are afraid of failing, you're in the wrong place. Being afraid of failing will actually prevent you from learning or playing too small. And that, by the way, that happened to me too. I was playing so small because I was so afraid to go out of business that I could have grown like 10 times more if I would have just say, let's do it. Let's just do it and see what happens, right?
yeah. I agree. I agree 100%. It's funny when I have when I have sales calls, sometimes I still do sales calls, sometimes with close friends, like not close friends, I'm sorry, with people that I just have a good connection with or whatnot, that I have personal connections with. I still get on sales calls, and there's times where I see the fear creep up when we're having the conversation, and I know what's on the other side of them saying yes to me. I know the clarity. I know what I'm going to do for their business, but they start. You know how they say when you want an excuse, you'll find one. They
Mm-hmm.
come up with excuses of how it's not going to work rather than how can it work.
Right.
So it's a focus. What you choose to focus on really just determines, what you attract into your life, right? So if you focus on failure, that's exactly what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right? We miss 100% of the shots we don't take, and I find it frustrating sometimes to be able to. It's frustrating sometimes when I have a conversation with a business owner that I know exactly how I can help their business. I know what I'm capable of doing for their business. And when they just get in their head, oh, well, what if it doesn't work? Oh, well, I don't think I don't know. Like, it's really just, it's frustrating, but it's really mindset that gets in the way of people succeeding.
It's exactly right. I love how you put it together. Uh, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. My God. And the funny part is that we came to this world to do exactly that, to learn how to grow, how to give, how to receive. And that requires risk. The funny part is that people think that by not doing something that they feel compelled to do, they are getting themselves in a safety net. But it's not true. Like, even walking into the shower, you could sleep and die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everything is a construct of your mind, right? I think it's your amygdala, your primitive brain telling you there is a lion behind that bush and it's going to eat you, right? And then you're in high stress and you're paralyzed, because that's what fear does. It paralyzes you, right?
Absolutely.
And prevents you from becoming the person you should really become.
Absolutely. That reminded me what you just said right now. It's so true. 100% true. Fear is a funny thing. Here's the one distinction that I heard from Bob Proctor. I'm sure you've heard of Bob Proctor, and probably your listeners also have as well. He said something that's still to this day I live my life by, and I'm very conscious about what I'm doing. He said, fear requires, so both faith and fear require that you believe in an outcome that you don't see. So what you choose to believe in, if you believe if fear is driving the decision, you're still betting on something you don't know about. You can't see that outcome. But guess what? So does faith. If you have faith, you're still banking or betting on an outcome that you don't see. They both require the same belief system, in essence, right? But we are, I don't know, it's curious to realize we're so driven on fear. Like, fear drives so much of our decisions that instead of having faith on that things could work out, people default to those fears. Mm-hmm. It's usually at its core, it's really fear of failure. One of the things I learned from Sean Callaghy, fear of failure, fear of rejection.
Yeah.
One of those two things. And those two things really serve one thing. They serve the ego.
Yeah.
So one of the greatest things that I've learned to do and again, going back to mindset of business, is to learn to be in service of others rather than myself.
Yeah.
Always finding ways to be in service of others, and then less ego, more in service of others.
And how can I add value, right? How can I add value? And that's something that I learned too, because like you at the beginning, I was doing all kinds of things just to make money, and my focus was making money. When I realized that was meaningless and I was empty, I switched my mind to how can I add value? Because I know that if I add incredible value to my fellow human beings, the money is going to be a side effect. But I don't have to focus on the money. I mean, I have to run a profitable business, don't get me wrong, but if I focus on how much value I'm going to add to you so that your life is better, the money will always come. And it comes in avalanches of abundance, by the way.
Yes.
Right? But the focus is different. Talking about our humanity, like our energy, I believe we're 100% energy. And it's the same energy that fits fear, and it's the same energy that fits happiness and success and faith. You're completely right. But energy is energy. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed.
Right.
So you know what I do? Actually, my dad taught me this too. You know what I do when I'm about to make a decision and I need to measure my risk, because every decision has a risk involved. And it's not about making decisions without measuring your risk. It's about doing it knowing what could happen, or at least have some parameter of what could happen. So my dad always told me, when you have no idea what to do, your heart is guiding you to do something that is crazy, according to your brain, because it's trying to protect you from the lion, right? He says, make a list of all the things that could happen from best to worst. And then if you're okay living with the worst, then you're fine. If you're not okay living with the worst, that means that you went past your threshold of risk. And I've been doing that of my life. Now, having said that though, now my bottom is lower and keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. Meaning, like the list goes longer because the worst thing that could happen, it doesn't faze me anymore. Before the worst thing that could happen, it was pretty high. So I did very little. But now it's like, what's the worst it could be? Like, okay, I die. Awesome. I die. I go to the next stage in my existence. That's the worst. Come on. You know? But that's a great measurement, because honestly, if you're really willing to live, for example, when I started investing in real estate, it was back in 2007. So we had a house, and then we wanted just to move to a bigger house, but instead of selling our house, rented. We had no idea what we were doing. I did that, right? I put everything on a table and I said, okay, what's the worst that will happen? The worst will be I don't rent the house, or I lose too much money on the house. So I sell my house where I'm living and I go back to my house, and yeah, what do I lose? I didn't even put a penny down because I just took a remortgage on the main house, right? So we did it. And thanks to that, now I have a very strong real estate business on the side that provides comfort and provides stability for the entire family.
Wow. So let me ask you, when you made those decisions, were they backed by faith or fear?
The list is made by fear. Otherwise, if you had 100% faith, you wouldn't even make the list. You just act, right? But you have to measure your risk too. I truly believe you have to measure your risk all the time, because if you don't, then you have regrets, and then you don't learn your lesson, especially if you start blaming somebody else, right? So the list was done based on fear, but then I put it completely aside because I made peace with the worst outcome, and then it was 100% faith, if that makes sense. And by the way, I lost money on that house for about 3-4 years, where I had to put money out of my pocket to keep the house running for the taxes and fixing the house, and the rental income wasn't enough. Dude, now that house grew 5 times in value. And now it's super profitable. Well, that house was the seed for all the other properties that we have, right?
Right. But what I mean is you focused on what could go right rather than what could go wrong.
Yes, after making the list. It took me 10 minutes to make the list, and then I spent all my life just making it right. Right?
That's beautiful. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, brother. So your main business now is video production. Then what's the marketing aspect of it?
So the main business evolved from there. So for us, again, going back to unpacking value, right? So figuring out how I can provide better, more value for the client. One of the things that we started noticing within the business was that we were getting a lot of clients that just didn't know what to do with the content. So they would spend a lot of money producing these videos and taking these professional, amazing photos, but they would go and they would put it on their website or they'll post it on social media and had no real strategy for that content to be distributed to the masses or to their ideal customers. So given my background in marketing and the fact that I've been around in marketing for so long, I said, you know what, we need to focus on solving this problem for our clients. Not only will they continue doing more business with us, but they will be more successful. And if they're more successful, they're going to spend more money with us and refer more business. So I had that conversation with my business partner at the time, and he did not see the same vision I had. He did not have the same vision I had. So I ended up branching out of that business. Although I still have the business, I created a separate entity that just catered to solving that problem. He wanted to do his own thing with the video production stuff, and that's cool. That's his passion. Marketing wasn't his passion. But the fact that I wanted to serve at a higher capacity, that's what led me to start the marketing agency. So I started the whole marketing journey of opening up my own agency back in 2019. That's when I really started getting, actually in 2018 is when I really started getting a little more serious about it. 2019, that's when I really got into it, started getting clients, and then eventually incorporated. But then from there, it became this constant unpacking of value, figuring out what the problems that these people, my clients, are dealing with, or the market is dealing with, and finding ways to meet those needs, right? Just asking the questions, figuring out what their problems are, and figuring out how I can serve them at a higher capacity. So I ended up starting the marketing agency. I ended up starting my own software company within the marketing agency as well. So we own a CRM that eliminates a follow-up. So one of the follow-up problem that a lot of businesses have, we ended up, again, and this comes from listening to the problems that my customers are dealing with. We ended up getting into the business of software automations.
Beautiful.
So it went from video production to marketing to software automations. Now we're an all-encompassing solution for a lot of businesses. So now we're serving at a higher capacity, providing more value than we initially thought of. So that's really how it came into. And now really the core business for me and what I love doing is just going. It's funny how things come full circle, right? And it just went back to the marketing aspect of it, right? So I ended up going to school for marketing. My first job was actually in marketing and advertising. My first official job was in marketing and advertising. And it all just came full circle. I said, this is what I got to do to serve at a higher capacity.
Amazing, brother. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, I'm going to ask you one last question, and I wanted to answer it from your heart.
Yes.
Imagine that you had access to a whiteboard in front of the busiest highway on earth. What would you write in it?
First thing that comes to mind has nothing to do with business, but it sort of almost has everything to do with business. Lead with love.
That's beautiful. And that came from the heart. Usually the first thing that comes to mind, if you actually think about your heart first, is what's the right thing. Lead with love. What does that mean?
That means that have integrity. So have integrity over everything you do. Be in service of the other person. It brings me back to there's a verse in the Bible that talks about consider others superior to you, and it talks about serving others. And I think if you break down at the end of the day, like if you break down to the core what it is that separates, I think, great businesses from businesses that are very transactional, very cold, don't have that kind of relationship. I think it really boils down to how much you care about the person you're serving.
Yes.
And it all really, if you have to care about the person who you're doing business with.
Yeah.
And even if it means you lose money on a deal, because you want to, even if it means that you lost money on a deal because maybe you made a mistake, you misquoted, which happens sometimes in business. You act out of integrity, out of love and service for that person rather than yourself, and that comes back to you 10 times over. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in my business. I've seen it in the business of others. But it's that, to me, that's what that means, leading with love.
That's beautiful, brother. And by the way, that's also for life. Everything in life, you follow that rule, you're gonna have a beautiful life.
It's sort of the golden rule, right?
Fantastic. And that's why you have such a happy face, because you have a beautiful open heart. Thank you, Jonathan, for being in the podcast. It was a pleasure having you. If people want to find you to inquire about your services, where can they find you online?
Sure. So our website is realmarketingstrategies.com. That's REEL, like fishing reel.
Uh-huh.
Going back to my passion for fishing, it's really an acronym. We can get into that some other time. But anyways, yes, REEL, realmarketingstrategies.com. And you can book a free strategy session. Anybody that's listening to the show, I would happily sit down and audit what you're doing in your business and see what I can do to, if I can help you, I at least point you in the right direction. But our purpose is really to be a major contributing factor to the financial success of other people. And that's what we're all about.
Fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much, brother, from the bottom of my heart. And on behalf of our audience, we learned so many lessons today, some valuable. Appreciate it. Have a beautiful rest of the week, and I'll see you around.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.